Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, today's guest is Patrice Bonfilio. She is president over at Sarissa Capital Management LP. Patrice, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Adam. I'm excited to be here. I look forward to our discussion.
All right, Patrice. So happy to have you on the show here. And I know that you were referred to us in coming off of the Activist Investor Conference. I wanted to be there so much, but I was booked for another conference. So I was like, I couldn't make it, but next time. But how was the conference? I know you were a speaker there.
It was great. It was very different to have the perspective of activist investors, the vendors that are sometimes championing the companies where we're actually campaigning against. So you're getting all sides from law firms, vendors, investors, even some students were there. So it was a good mix.
Whoa, how's that? So you're seeing the other side and you're all in the same conference? Obviously it's collegial. I don't mean like that. This isn't like the playground, right? But to see everybody like that is a different feeling. I know I didn't consider that. You got both sides there, right?
Yeah, you remember everyone. You respect everyone's craft and job, and you can recognize when people are doing their diligence and when they're motivated by the right factors. So that helps.
Oh, that's interesting. You get to spend the day with them. This is interesting. We're normally in crossing paths, you would see each other, obviously, wherever out or whatever else, but to spend the day in a conference, I never thought about that. That's interesting. But also, I feel like that type of collaboration and being exposed to those type of ideas, like for the industry as a whole, like that had to be pretty inspiring overall, or educational, inspiring, whatever the word is. But it's an experience, right?
I agree. It's good for the industry. It's good for the ultimate companies. So at the end of the day, no matter what side you're on, you want to help to create companies that are built for long-term value. So whether you're trying to preserve it because you feel that is the right thing, or you're trying to engage and enhance it because you feel that is the right thing, our goals are usually the same.
So talk to me about some of what you presented in your content for those that weren't able to attend, such as myself.
Since the whole conference was about activism, I was trying to hone in on healthcare and activism. And it's a specialized area because, as you know, once you own a single share of a company, you become an owner. You're a shareholder. As owners, you can choose to be passive and just let it sit in your account, or you can be an engaged shareholder, and that's what activists really are. We take that role incredibly seriously, and we're almost like consultants that aren't charging a fee, which, you can pay a lot of money for advice, but we are those in the space that have seen it and done it and do it day in and day out. And within the healthcare sector, so I like to compare the IP of a healthcare company, let's say a pharmaceutical company that has a drug that the FDA approves, that patent can last for 20 years. And maybe by the time they commercialize, maybe it's 10 years. But basically, that whole time, no one else is allowed to compete with you on that product. Yeah. Compare it to a company that is selling some sort of hardware or even a local pizza shop. You have to make sure that your product is the best and that your customer service is the best and that you're open every day. And you need to ensure that the product you are making is consistent and better than all the competition. So if you are serving a pizza that doesn't taste as good or that's cold, you might not get those return customers, and that revenue is going to immediately suffer, right? So you have to make sure your management team, anyone governing that pizza shop, is on point and making daily decisions about the trajectory of the firm or of the shop. So that's where it starts to deviate. Imagine instead of just 10 pizza shops in your town, there was one, and in some cases people needed pizza to live. Right? That's the comparison we're making here. Right? So it's usually medications.
Along with making me hungry, Patrice. Thank you. It's a little. So tell me, go ahead, please. Tell me more about this pizza. No, that we're competing with. No.
A lot of my examples have to do with food. But it's a huge difference in the mindset of revenue. A lot of times you think of an entrepreneur or someone running a company like, okay, we need to hit our deadlines. We need to make our targets. And that shift and governance is so important because you need to make sure that you are not taking for granted the revenue coming in. One day it will end, and you want to make sure your organization is healthy and that the owners of the company are also seeing that success. And that's the major difference in healthcare. And one thing that I shared at the conference that people hadn't necessarily thought about before, they see activist investors in a lot of different sectors, but you do need specific knowledge to play in this healthcare ecosystem.
What initially introduced you or kept you in like the healthcare niche? Like how'd that come about?
Oh, fascinating question. Nothing that I saw on the wall, really.
Well, you're in good company, by the way, so I didn't know I was going to be a podcaster. I didn't even know podcasts exist when I was in school. I'm like, I didn't know that was happening either. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, you kind of stumble into your passion.
Yes, ma'am.
I had worked in the hedge fund industry my whole career. I didn't go to school for this, but I had started directly after graduating college. And I was at a firm, a commodities firm. It was a hedge fund in the city, and we were winding down, and the firm was closing, and I got a phone call. And I was in the middle of Grand Central. Anyone from New York knows how cavernous that place is. I could hardly hear what they were saying, but it said something about healthcare and activism. And I realized I could take my skill set and be part of something that is long-term in nature. Because a lot of what hedge funds do, you're trading in and out. Every second there's trades going through. And to be a part of something that is, going to be lasting in nature was appealing. And, I had always been a very vocal person when it comes to mental health and mental illness and trying to advocate for my brother who had been diagnosed. So, usually when you're coming with a skill set of accounting and compliance and operations, you don't think, oh, I'm going to take that and then somehow be involved with a field that can help to find a cure or create a better quality of life. So to me, it was a slam dunk. I'm like, I can actually combine my efforts on my career front and also my personal agenda and advocacy. So it was a dream for me to try to move into this industry or portion of the industry. And it'll be 11 years for me in November that I've been.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's an amazing story. I love to hear how people find their passion and their niche and how it comes to them and how they can sometimes match these things. Because, this is my personal qualm. I'm not claiming I have a better system, by the way, but I always think back about when I was picking my major, think about what I want to do, and I'm going to college and I'm 18 and I'm like, 18-year-old Adam was really trying to plan out his life? Are you kidding me? And think about what you want to be when you grow up. Are you kidding me? I'm still thinking about that. So it's interesting how as youth we're tasked with those, big decisions kind of early on to find our way. So Patrice, we've talked a little bit from obviously the industry side of things and the industry standard. Let's jump around a little bit here. I do want to speak, address this topic as well from the investor's point of view. So why should investors be paying attention to activism in healthcare?
So it is a great niche. So one of the reasons why it's great to diversify your portfolio and include activism in healthcare is that there are these patents, right? There is a lot of profit that can be made in this industry. And I think when someone conjures up the idea of big pharma, they know there's revenue out there.
And when you say that, by the way, I want to, really quick, when you say that, I want to circle back for everybody listening. Remember, Patrice came from the hedge fund world. So when she's saying this, like this was her world for a long time. Go ahead. I just want to, because I like context. I'm like, if you're saying that it's a little bit different, then, you're no offense to the advisor down the block. I was that person for many years. I was in finance almost 14 years. So I'm not picking on that person, but it's just a little different. So please continue.
You're right. It is different. So with hedge funds, you're getting allocations from the large pension funds or institutions. some family offices. So the portfolio is constructed in a very specific way. And there are trends that change over time and things fall in and out of favor. And I think ever since COVID, I think the industry has really returned with a renewed respect for healthcare and biotech and what we can do on a global scale. And that really caused a huge explosion in valuations, and healthcare was overvalued, and then we saw that really drop dramatically. So now we're at a very sweet spot in what typically is a cycle, and it's the perfect time for people to try to migrate over and expand their portfolio. And just tying it back to that story of the pizza shop versus the
come on, get right back in there, Patrice.
Yeah, you weave it through, right?
Yep, get right back in there. I'm ready.
Yeah, imagine the company that still has, let's say, 7 years left on their patent. You can get involved in that company and make sure that they're continuing to run it for the benefit of shareholders. There's a lot of value that is guaranteed to be there. So if you have an activist there, making sure that they have a pulse on capital allocation, on the investment in R&D and what's appropriate, any sort of share buybacks to investors. There's so many different tools in the toolkit of how to manage a company. You can do it well, or you can just sit on your laurels. And if you know that an activist is involved, there will be a helpful guiding eye throughout that process. It's definitely a way to add a necessary thread to your portfolio.
You can share, something that you're working on if you like to. Don't have to, not putting you on the spot, or just something in general that you're following. Any interesting cases or situations that you're keeping up with right now in healthcare, specifically in regards to activism?
With activists, typically you're building the position first before you go public. And so, I can't.
That's why I said if there's something public. When I was interviewing some of the other individuals on here, we already used the Disney example. So we've been doing that one. We've been doing a couple of the other ones. I don't know. It could be present, or if there's nothing, it's okay too. Again, I'm not putting you on the spot for any companies you're working on.
Yeah. No, but I can give an example. So as you know, I'm president of Sarissa, but I'm also on the board as a director for Ameren Corporation. And that is one of our portfolio companies. And if we rewind a year ago, we were in the middle of a public proxy fight with Ameren, but we were successful and we've been partnering with them to do some great work. So that is an interesting case where a company needed a change. They needed a refreshment. The drug had lost the patent. So that was a juncture where leadership had to make a plan to change. And even if there's a patent in the United States, there's also the rest of the world. So there's tons of opportunities where you can commercialize in Europe, in Asia, in South America. It's almost endless. So you can keep not renewing, it's different patents, but you extend the life and the revenue and the runway of the company by expanding to the rest of the world. So that's a very good example of how you can shift with the right leadership and activists involved.
That's interesting. I haven't really thought about it from we've been having, I guess technically I did do some interviews for the conference and we covered the activist investor situation in Canada, which I learned a whole lot about and understanding like how forward they are and thinking, and that obviously it's a smaller market, right? But it was interesting to see their take on it. So I haven't really thought about outside of maybe U.S. and the Canadian market, but how that maybe applies abroad and internationally and maybe some other countries. That's interesting.
Yep. And with healthcare, there's a lot of global monolith companies that are able to commercialize drugs quite well because of their portfolio. So it's always, the global element is always part of the conversation.
Well, Patrice, I have to say it has been great having you on the show today, and thank you for making some time for us after the conference and after that engagement. And again, I wish I could have been there next year. I'll be there though, an Activist Investor Conference in NYC held by Deal Flow Events, and I know Charlie and Phil and their whole team over there worked really hard on that. So I've heard nothing but good things about it. So I will be there next time. But that being said, for today, Patrice, if somebody wants to learn more about Sarissa Capital Management, or if they want to follow your journey or connect, how do they do that?
So if they want to connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn, Patrice Bonfilio and Sarissa Capital. And if you'd like any information on Sarissa, you can email info@sarissacap.com. That's SARISSACAP.com.
Amazing. And we'll put the websites, all that good stuff in the show notes for the audience. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time with us, hey, don't forget, hit that subscribe button. This is a daily show, and each and every day we're bringing you new content, new amazing guests like Patrice, and we don't want you to miss a thing. And if you are a long-term listener and haven't left us a review yet, come on, you better get that review done. We sure do appreciate it. And Patrice, again, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Adam. Had a lovely time.